Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries this evening. Hope you're doing well. Can't complain. Looking forward to sharing with you this evening. And again, as previewed, we are going to talk today about Sean's bouts with alcoholism. Following the passing of my partner and my best friend in the whole wide world, when that came to a close, I fell into a very dark period. Until essentially I met my husband in a few years after Johnny died. There was Tim, John, and then this dark period. So first of all, when I turned 21, I dove in right around when I got married. I turned 21, of course, I went to my first gay bar and they didn't card me. And then I got in there and I'm like, what the hell have I been missing? This is nothing. And it was always standing around with a beer. It was not, it wasn't like, ordering like B-52 shooters or whatever. It was just a beer. But I dove in. So I turned 21, I was married. We all know about that marriage situation. And I was legal. So until I met Tim, which was about 3 months into being 21, barely, like I said, I went full throttle, okay? No drugs, alcohol. I was full force. I was, at least for those few months, I was drinking all the time. It was a wild time. I was having fun with it, I suppose. I was sleeping around, and all that comes with drinking. You can only imagine. All of us have been touched by it one way or the other, either personally or with folks that are close to us, or maybe not even close to us. So then came Tim. Tim was in 1988. Now, from Tim through Johnny, who passed away back to back over a few years, there was nothing. I think I smoked a little pot with Johnny, but once the whole thing with Tim hit in 88, I didn't touch anything. We didn't touch anything. I didn't smoke pot. I didn't drink. Neither of us drank. He passed. Then Johnny is, we're trauma bonded, and then I'm dealing with all kinds of stuff. He's dealing with it because it was his brother. But I'm not drugging and I'm not drinking at this point. Much like my 14th year, which I suppose the studios are punishing me for having that, I don't know, walk on the wild side being 14. I suppose that ruined my reputation and will follow me to my passing. So let's jump to then Johnny and I. Following Tim's death, Johnny and I lived in an apartment. I've also discussed this a little bit on Holloway, which is kind of like ground zero West Hollywood, where all the action is, so to speak. All the visible action, at least. So Johnny and I have this apartment together, and then Johnny passes. So I'm left with our dog, crying by the door, sleeping with Sunny, our Shar-Pei, because she was just waiting for him to come home. And so this started this very dark period. I went into full isolation. I should say I fell into full isolation, or I put myself into full isolation. Not a good period of time for Sean not to be watched over, monitored, or checked in with. But when I fell into this rabbit hole of being in the same apartment, of going through all of that stuff for a few years, everyone sort of disappearing on me, not knowing quite what to do with this, young gay widow, whatever. It's not gender specific. Mourning is not gender specific. So then John passes. I'm stuck in the same apartment and I am all alone. This is when the free fall began. left in this situation, being in no man's land, both in my head and environmentally, I just completely free fell into drinking. It was daily. Now, the ironic thing is, I never liked liquor. I mean, I don't like the taste of it, and I really don't quite care for the way it makes me feel. I sure did, when I was, wild and crazy in and around 14. But at this age now that I had been through all of that, or even before, again, like I said, it was a beer. I wasn't having cocktails. I wasn't, it was a miserable state of drinking. And like I said, it was daily. It was in bars. I wasn't like some gross barfly, but I mean, I was presentable, but I was out looking to drink every night, pretty much. Like I said, I was alone in the universe. No one was touching base with me following Johnny's passing, having been through those whole few years with me, and then they're gone, and I'm here, and I'm alone, and I'm stuck in the same apartment, and no one knew what the hell to do with me. So I was left to my own devices. Never a good thing for Sean. Never has been, never was. So in this toaster fire of mine, this quiet toaster fire, I fell into risky behavior, not sexually risky, but public places. I would, I was drinking, and I was being promiscuous, and I would do things like, be physically intimate with somebody at 3 a.m. on a sidewalk in a residential neighborhood, like on the sidewalk. So it was off the charts. I was behind here, over there, in here, everywhere, doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. And not, like I said, sexually risky. And I wasn't like drinking and driving. I would go to an area, and if I was tricking or drinking or whatever, it would be in that area. So I wasn't sprawling all over Hollywood and West Hollywood, schnockered off my butt. But all of these places were in very close proximity. The places to cruise, the places to trip, the places to drink, the places to all sorts of things. So I was just completely, and again, mind you, I'm still married, technically, but I've been through my spouse passing, my best friend in the whole universe passing. I'm still legally married, and I'm in this weird limbo of this married guy in West Hollywood with 2 dead hearts of mine just gone. Everything was just gone. And I didn't know what else to do but drink. And I don't want to even say party, because it was a very dark, lonely drinking period. Like I said, it was active, highly active, but in slow motion. I mean, that whole period was such a blur to me. Once I didn't have Johnny, I didn't have Tim, and then I didn't have Johnny. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know where I belonged. I took a job doing phone sex, and did whatever, I worked as an extra. I did anything I could possibly do to survive. I couldn't handle waiting tables anymore. I mean, I rotated through 3 restaurants. I couldn't do that anymore. But I had hit rock bottom, between the survivor guilt and the having nobody, partially of my own choosing, and diving into this underworld, this gay, sexual, environmental, sort of toxic, like pleasure dome. And then I just hit rock bottom. I just bottomed out, every day was just becoming like the next. As Janis Joplin used to say, it's all the same fucking day, man. And so it became like this big, long weekend, just like the movie with Ray Milland. So, so I'm doing phone sex as Angela for a year and a half, listening to straight men, all double, triple shifts just to make money as Angela. Oops, almost gave you the voice there. No one's ever heard the phone sex voice like my son over the phone once from room to room. He wanted to hear it, never wanted to hear it again, and never did it for anybody again. So then, in the midst of this, I am looking through the Advocate. You know, I then fall into this kind of looking for boyfriend phase, you know, right when towards, you know, as I'm I don't want to say kind of falling out of this alcoholic, you know, haze, but then it became sort of a reason to like, okay, I'm going to find a boyfriend. I want to be in love again, which I so did, but it was so misplaced. It was such a bad time for me to want that. And I dated, you know, there's a few beautiful men, you know, out there that I dated. I did not fall in love with them, and I so desperately wanted to just be madly in love again. So I pull myself out of rock bottom, even though I'm still a nothing in nowhere land. And I answer an ad in the Advocate from the county, from the county health department. And so I got that job based on my experience firsthand with HIV, education, caregiving for sure, and volunteerism with, you know, support groups, and there were places for people with HIV to go to eat, to go to sit down, you know, believe it or not, just to rest, just to be with others. So all of that sort of, you know, built into a qualification to work, you know, to do, I was, what was I, social outwork level 2 something or other, which means I did community assessment and research, which meant I went into the streets. I was trained, as we all know, for venipuncture and some medical procedures and other things, and then by the Centers for Disease Control, monitoring how we were interviewing people and whatever. So I kind of sobered up a bit. But then in the midst of this, I went into drag. Now, the thing is that I went into drag, which I will go into and then sometime in the next couple of shows, with an agenda, which we will talk about. I didn't just decide, oh, you know, I'm feeling girly, or I used to like to wear my mom's heels, so now I'm going to be liberated and I'm going to be a drag queen. No, I had an agenda for being a drag queen, for getting into that scene. This is in and around the time I met my husband, when I first started falling into the drag scene and becoming sort of, you know, a B-list drag superstar. Very B, on the B end. But then I'm still drinking because, like I said, I never liked the taste. I didn't necessarily like how it made me feel, other than it took me out of myself. You know, I just kind of wanted a little comatose feeling every now and again, and it gave it to me. Now, like I said, up until then, it was mostly like beers. Not that that's any worse or better, but I was just, you know, I'd get a bottle of beer. That was just like kind of me. Now, when I fell into drag right before I met my husband, I never craved the stuff. Everyone else drank, not everybody, but come on, girls. The bar was packed. So then it became very social because of my being able to handle myself so well. If anyone else was drinking, I was drinking, and I was very social as the drag queen. I was like beyond, like social, like, you know, nuclear social. And so then the drinking became a part of that. And again, my tolerance was so high with drugs and alcohol. Remember from that 14th year that I will forever never live down from Universal. So it was very social. It was very part of the scene. Have a drink, I smoked, you know, whatever. And it was party, but it was like kind of an alluring kind of celebrity underbelly party, always going on. So I meet my husband. We all know, we'll get into that at some point in a book or a show or two. And we meet, we all know he wrote me a parking ticket, and he voided it and put his phone number, and we fell in love and happily ever after. But I was still in the thick of drag when he met me, because I still had my agenda going, which again, I will share with you at another time. But slowly, with that love, because I fell in love with my husband at first sight. That had only happened to me once before with Tim. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, this really does happen. It can still happen. As shitty as things were and as rock bottom as I was still gifted with the ability to fall in love at first sight. And I did. And I continue to do some fairly heavy social drinking, because it came with the territory a lot. But my husband, who was so non-judgmental, who even if he did drink, you would never know. You would never know. I've never seen my husband even act tipsy. But I've been around him when he's had a few screwdrivers. It just doesn't compute like that. So I slowly weaned myself off of drag into what I went into drag to do, and pulled away from drinking. And I never went back. I never went back. I don't know that I've had a drink in decades. I think I may have had like a mojito at a luncheon. I hate beer. I'm not like wine or champagne with dinner or casually, and I just don't like the taste of, I mean, you know, I had a whiskey sour with my son on my birthday, you know, BFD, but luckily it just passed. It passed out of my system. I have, like I said, I haven't touched nor had the desire since. So that was what I would still consider bouts of alcoholism. You know, it's not like, oh, well, I drank for a while. Well, no, if you drink every day and you rely on it, even if you hate the taste of it, that's alcoholism. You know, open-ended, closed-ended, it still is. And I had waves of it between my survival guilt and mourning and tragedy and all the other stuff, and you know, having to survive, I fell into a couple bouts of alcoholism, and then it was gone. So I hope it wasn't disappointing today, you know, just sort of chronicling that difficult period for myself. But I will let you go. I know I'm running over with this, and I can't decide if I'm going to do something super fun tomorrow, or maybe follow up on this one, or follow up on the show from yesterday. We'll see. But doesn't matter. Even if I sat here reading the phone book, it would make my day, because you're here with me. I can breathe. I can know that life still goes on. There's still other people in the world, and they have feelings like I do, and they need to be heard, and they like to listen. So that's what I'm here for. Okay, take care. Love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.